How many of you were like me and thought the Montreal Canadiens wouldn't come away with more than 3 points in this trip? Sure, they won the other night against Utah, but then back-to-back versus Vegas and Colorado, with Sam Montembeault starting on a Friday afternoon, guess what, Habs fans? We got duped. The Canadiens come away with a 4-1 win over the Vegas Golden Knights this afternoon in Vegas. Let's talk some puck. Hey gang, Costa here from PuckTalk Montreal, welcoming you to this November 28th edition of the show, where we get to take a look back at this afternoon's game between the Vegas Golden Knights and your Montreal Canadiens, and we look forward to the Montreal Canadiens taking on the Colorado Avalanche on Saturday afternoon at 3. But before we get to all that, some big news announced today by the Montreal Canadiens is Mike Matheson was re-signed for 5 years, $6 million a year. And while I thought that that's pretty good money for a guy that brings what Matheson brings to the table, in the sense that he's a veteran presence, he's still mobile out there, he plays in both offensive and defensive situations, and he's a leader. So the fact that he's staying another 5 years, it just says one thing to me. It means the Montreal Canadiens are serious about their window being on the verge of opening up. And if that's the case, then all of us as Habs fans have a lot to look forward to. Now, Matheson's deal has a modified no trade. First 3 years, no movement. He's not going anywhere. The last two, well, after the age of 35, the Canadiens have given him a list of 10 teams that he can choose from that they can deal him to. So it's pretty much cut and paste for Kent Hughes, who gives older guys that same type of deal no matter what. And here's the fun part. The fact that Matheson is staying means that Sidney Crosby is always still a possibility, because after all, they are buddy-buddy. But we're not going to go that far, right? The fact of the matter remains is that the Canadiens' top four defense are etched in stone right now. You've got Hudson, Dobson, Matheson, Gooley. Those four guys are money. You've got Reinbacher coming up. You've got Carrier, who's still back there. You've got Arbor Xhekaj. You've got James Struble. You've got a hell of a defense. And you've also got Adam Engstrom, who didn't look too bad the other night versus Utah in his debut. So there's a lot to be said about this signing. It gives fans and the team alike confidence, because Mike's not going anywhere. At the beginning of the year, a lot of us, myself included, thought that Mike was on his way out of town because of the fact that Lane Hudson had taken over his position on the first power play. What we didn't count on was the fact that Mike Matheson had the ability to transition his game and turn himself into a more defensive style player, as opposed to a guy who was all offense all the time. It doesn't mean that he can't turn it on when he needs to, but what it means is in our own zone, he's very responsible. That pairing between him and Dobson is the only one that has stayed together throughout the season so far. And that stability is paying dividends to Kent Hughes and the Montreal Canadiens. It's as simple as that. So re-signing Matheson probably has a lot to do with his ability to play with Dobson and the cohesiveness that they have. And so with that, we can move forward. The Canadiens could now look seriously towards their second line center, and we can move forward from there. But we talked about that the other day. We'll leave well enough alone there. Now, let's take a look at the highlights from today's win versus the Vegas Golden Knights. And for that, we talk Instacustoms. Instacustoms.com is Canada's highest rated print shop with over 3,000 Google reviews and a 4.9 star rating. They offer direct-to-garment printing on all your favorite clothing, along with coffee and travel mugs, and they even offer embroidery. Habs won a Stanley Cup? You can win too on Stanley Street at Instacustoms.com. Now, early on in this hockey game, it looked like Vegas was absolutely going to manhandle the Canadiens, shooting at will, getting shots on goal, and you thought the game was going to be over rather quickly. Cue the one wild card nobody thought of today, and that was Samuel Montembeault. Yes, came out of my mouth. I was thoroughly impressed with him, especially in the first period. Top of his crease, challenging shooters, fighting through screens. Montembeault did everything right. And as you see here in this little highlight package I put together, he was making saves, smothering pucks instead of playing rebounds out into the corner or into the slot. You know, there was one save that he made. Here he is again, sliding across, making a save. I mean, there's a lot to be said about Montembeault's game today. He was outstanding for Montreal, allowing just a single goal late in the third period and through no fault of his own. It is what it is when it came to that goal. But overall, Sam Montembeault was excellent. The only thing that still worries me is that he has trouble catching the puck. We saw him try to catch the puck. It popped out of his glove, led to a second chance opportunity for the opposition, where he made another big save because he was tracking the puck extremely well. He was noticing what was going on his back door. He was following the play. He was making good reads. The whole enchilada. I have zero negative to say about Sam Montembeault today. He was outstanding for Montreal, and if you don't think he was, I have a bridge in Brooklyn that I want to sell you. It's as simple as that. Nobody's going to convince me that Montembeault did not have a good game today, and he wasn't at the top of his game because he was following plays, freezing pucks, doing everything that he needed to do to support his defensemen. And at the end of the game, when everybody came onto the ice, you saw how much they appreciated the effort and how happy they were for him, this guy included, because you never want to see a goalie go through what Montembeault's going through right now. That's not to say that this is done and buried and he's out, because it's just one game, but it's a step and a solid one in the right direction. That being said, after that first period where he literally saved the Montreal Canadiens bacon, Zach Bolduc scored on a delayed penalty on a beautiful feed. Cross crease by Juraj Slafkovsky. Here it is. He gets it on the boards, look across, and even the cameraman didn't see Bolduc. And that made it 1-0 for Montreal. Here it is again. Slafkovsky on the far boards, steps down towards the goal line, fires across, and Bolduc, to his credit, fired that puck. As opposed to going short side, he fired it under the armpit of the Vegas goaltender. Man, I can't remember his name again. Schmidt, there you go. To make it 1-0 for Montreal. That is how it stayed till the beginning of the second period, when Cole Caulfield scored the dirtiest, and I mean dirty in a very good way, of goals on Schmidt. Where's the angle here? He fires this puck in and nobody realizes it goes in except for the referee, who was in great position to see this shot. Here it is. Did you see it? No? Here it is again. Caulfield on the goal line. Okay, he's going to get the pass here. Comes right to him. Where did that go in from? We'll watch again. Right over the shoulder of Schmidt into the top corner, making it 2-0 Montreal. Nasty, dirty goal by Cole Caulfield. And that was his 14th of the season. Then as the game progressed, early in that second period, by the way, Kapanen got a great chance in front, fed by Davidov, and he had a breakaway but couldn't finish on Schmidt. And that happened to Jake Evans as well in the second period. But in the third, Jake Evans got the best of him. And what happened here is Alexander Texier got his first point as a Hab right here as he passes the puck through the legs of Shea Theodore to Evans, who puts it home. A nice touch on this pass by Texier. You could see his skill, puts it right through, and Theodore is no slouch. He's not the type of guy to allow those passes through, but he allowed that one through, and Evans made no mistake, making it 3-0 for the Habs early in that third period. The third period continued. Montembeault continued his good goaltending. Everything seemed to be going roses for Montreal. And at that point, at the 5-minute mark, I kind of wanted Montembeault to get the shutout so that it'd be a great story, not just a good one. Still a really great story, but a shutout would have been extra special, I think. That didn't happen. Why? Because Noah Dobson, and I forget who the other defenseman was that was out there with him, made the cardinal mistake of going to the same side of the ice together and leaving Mark Stone alone in front, and he puts it home past Montembeault to make it 3-1 with 4:44 left in the third period. Not much Monty could do there. Mark Stone is an elite goal scorer. In tight like that, he's not going to finish. But I do have a question. Why is it that every time Mark Stone scores, he looks like he has to take a shit? He smiles like he's constipated. Anyways, that's just my opinion. I'd rather he not grind his teeth when he scores because it looks like he's pushing really hard. But still. And then At 3-1, Vegas pulls the goalie, and with just under 2 minutes left, Juraj Slafkovsky gets a well-earned empty netter with Joe Veleno in the crease. He comes around and fires it short side on Mitch Marner to make it 4-1 Montreal, and that's all she wrote. Nice little reward there for Juraj Slafkovsky on that goal. So the Canadiens come away with a 4-1 win. Not really a lot of shots on goal for the Canadiens. They only got, 19 for the whole game. But let's take a look at the analysis of this game. And that analysis, as always, is brought to you by cheapestt-shirts.ca. Cheapestt-shirts.ca has men's, women's, and children's t-shirts, all sizes, hoodies too, with over 1,000 products to choose from. Anything you need for merchandise or the best deals on everyday clothing, cheapestt-shirts.ca is your go-to source. Buy today, ship tomorrow, cheapestt-shirts.ca. Why did the Canadiens only get 19 shots on goal, you ask? Another one of these games where they don't get anywhere near the 30 shot mark. Well, the reason why that happens is because the Canadiens in this particular game ended up on the wrong side of the faceoff battle. They won only 40.7%. Vegas doing a great job against the Habs at the dot in this hockey game. But the other part about Montreal's game that's really impressive when you take a look at the limited amount of shots that they're getting is where they're getting their shots from. They're not from the outside like we used to see last season just to get the numbers up. They're shooting from quality scoring areas outside of Cole Caulfield shooting from everywhere because he seems to be hitting the smallest little area of the net and putting it in. But when you take a look at some of the shots that they're getting, whether it's Kapanen from the slot fed by Demidov on his breakaway, Evans twice on the breakaway, the list goes on and on. The shots that the Canadiens are getting are of high quality. Their high danger chances, extremely high. And that's not normal for Montreal. What that means is that offensively, they're generating offense and they're funneling the puck to the right areas of the ice, which is fantastic. No issue there. The only problem I have is that they're doing that at 5-on-5 on a consistent basis, but on the power play, they don't seem to funnel that puck into those areas as much. And I'd like to see them do it a little bit more. Now, granted, the defending team defends a little bit differently on the power play, so it's understandable that they don't want to funnel it through all that often. But still, I'd like to see it happen a little bit more because that changes up the whole dynamic of the power play. But it is what it is. But this game right here stops and starts with the goaltending of Sam Montembeault. And I know that Ray Shroud out in Thailand is out on the Lamluka golf course right now while we sit in the snow, and he's listening to me saying, "Coach, you're nuts." I'm not. You know as well as I do that I am not Sam Montembeault's biggest fan as far as his technique and how he does things in relation to that technique, right? I've made that clear. I don't hate the player. It's nothing personal. It's about what he does in nets to make saves. And now I know that he's been working with Eric Raymond diligently to try to change those habits. You saw that in this hockey game. He was out beyond the top of the crease a few times in this game, which is something that he normally doesn't do. He was outside his comfort zone. That in and of itself is a step in the right direction. The other part that really impressed me about Sam Montembeault was his ability to see through screens. Oftentimes, we saw shots from distance against Montembeault beat him clean because he never saw the puck. There was way too much going on. But today, there were two things that went right for him. Number one, his defense did an awesome job knocking the Vegas Golden Knights on their ass to try to clear up the front of the net and allow him to see the puck. The second thing, because he was on top of the crease, he was able to see around players from the right side of the player in order to make saves. And what I mean by that is, Montembeault made a habit of looking outwards instead of in when trying to stop shots. So he was looking more towards his short side. So as an example, if the player was right in front of him and Montembeault wasn't quite in the middle of his net and he was a little bit closer to the left, he would lean to the left. Whereas normally when a player is in front of you and you know you've got that side covered, you would look from the right because that's the side that you know you have the weakness on and you have the opening, right? And he was doing that backwards. He didn't do that in this hockey game. He was looking from the right side of the players that were screening him. That allowed him to make the saves that he needed to make. Another thing that he did, instead of keeping the puck in play, he was freezing it more often. Uber important because it gives your defenseman an ability to rest, get a face-off, take a 20 to 30-second breather, get a line change in, whatever you want to say. Oftentimes, Sam Montembeault would allow those pucks to come in and he would just play them away with his stick. We saw once where he played it away right onto the stick of an opposing player, leading to a goal that should have never happened. So now, instead of doing that, the puck was coming to him, made one save, then two, and then drew the puck in to smother it. Not things that we normally see from Sam Montembeault, but it was refreshing to see that he's making those changes. He's trying to stop pucks and reel them in. I don't know if that's Eric Raymond. I don't know if that's Sam Montembeault, but got to give credit where credit is due because they're working on the right things, and the proof is in the victory tonight for the Montreal Canadiens. The other thing that they did extremely well that I outlined earlier in the preview show yesterday was the fact that the Montreal Canadiens mitigated not only the ability from the net front area for Vegas to get good quality rebounds and scoring chances, but they also slowed Vegas down in the neutral zone. They rarely attacked with speed through the middle of the ice. The Canadiens really cluttering the middle of the ice and dominating it because, after all, they did get three breakaways actually, if you count the one that Evans got stopped on. And that in and of itself shows you just how much they dominated the middle of the ice. Exactly what they needed to do to win this hockey game. They won the goaltending battle. They won the middle of the ice. They cleaned the front of the net. 3 out of the 5 things that I outlined. They also, I would say, won the special teams battle because they scored on a delayed penalty. So there's not one thing that they missed. They followed the 5 keys and boom, they come away with a win. Not too shabby when you look at it. So now the Canadiens take everything, throw it out the window, get on a plane, and they go to Colorado to face one of the hottest teams in the National Hockey League, the Colorado Avalanche. Why do I say one of the hottest teams? Because Minnesota beat them today in a shootout by a score of 3-2, thus breaking their 10-game winning streak and giving Colorado essentially a really tough battle in today's hockey game. That bodes really well for the Habs. But we'll talk about that in a minute because now it's actually time for your game day lineups. So now when we take a look at the game day lineups, for the Colorado Avalanche, you've got Arturi Lehkonen, Nathan MacKinnon, and Martin Necas up front on the first line, Colton, Nelson, and Landeskog on the second, Kelly, Drury, and Olofsson on the third, Ivan, Bardakov, and Kiviranta on the fourth line. On defense, Taves and Makar, Manson and Burns, Malinsky and Girard, Wedgwood expected to get the start versus the Canadiens, and Mackenzie Blackwood. Here's the thing, though. I honestly think that Blackwood's going to start. Wedgwood started today's game. I doubt that he's going to go back-to-back after facing, I think it was 37 shots on goal. Colorado had 41 in today's hockey game. So after that amount of work, I think it's going to be Mackenzie Blackwood getting the start and not Wedgwood. But we'll see. Either way, somebody with some wood is going to start the hockey game. That's just a horrible dad joke. I'm so sorry. I just had to get it out there. Those things come to me occasionally. I shouldn't say them, but anyway. So also for Colorado, if you take a look closely, they've got not too many injuries, but one of the guys they have in the press box is Nikushkin. That's a little surprising. Whether or not he draws into the lineup tomorrow, I don't know. But injured for them is McDonald and O'Connor. O'Connor out long-term with an injury, so we'll see how that goes. But at the end of the day, Colorado is the best team in the National Hockey League right now, having suffered just their second loss of the season. And when you take a look at tomorrow's game, the starting goaltenders, right? Jakub Dobeš confirmed yesterday by Marty St. Louis to start the hockey game. And Scott Wedgwood, as I mentioned, is unconfirmed, but I believe it might be Mackenzie Blackwood getting the start. We'll see. Either way, it's a Woody, like I said. I had to go back there again. I'm such an ass. But anyhow, in looking at that, right, what is there to say about the Montreal Canadiens against the Colorado Avalanche? What are the Canadiens' keys to victory against the Avalanche? Think about that for a minute. as I try to find them because I can't find them. Hang on. I had them. Hang on. 5 keys. I know what I named the file, but anyway. So for the Montreal Canadiens, it's that time, as I mentioned. Let's get to the keys to victory for Montreal. So what are those keys to victory? Well, number one, you have to limit the damage that the MacKinnon line does against you. You know that Nathan MacKinnon is going to be a danger all night long. So, and you know he's going to touch the puck. It's not like he's never going to touch it because Cale Makar looks to give it to him all the bloody time. So there has to be a little bit more emphasis on the MacKinnon line because once you get past that, I mean, Brock Nelson and the rest of the crew, Landeskog, the scoring isn't anywhere near as potent as it is from that first line. So the Canadiens have to do a very good job mitigating what the MacKinnon line can do. There's no two ways about it. In talking about the MacKinnon line, you also mentioned Cale Makar as part of that line because more often than not, he's out there along with them. But all the offense drives through Nathan MacKinnon. We know that. Whether it's, goals by Arturi Lehkonen or Martin Necas, both those guys very capable players for the Avalanche, but it all goes through MacKinnon. He touches the puck, he distributes the puck, and the Habs need to keep tight gaps, active sticks in the neutral zone, and play smart defensively in their matchups to be able to get the best of MacKinnon. The problem is you have to get a guy out there who's fast on his feet against MacKinnon. Ideally, the guy to cover him would have been Alex Newhook because of the fact that Newhook's so quick, but Newhook's not out there, right? So who in that place would have to cover him? Well, I think the only person that you could look at in the Canadiens lineup that has the possibility of being able to cover him that well is Nick Suzuki. But in doing that, you take away from Suzuki's ability to provide offense, I think. Or can he? Can he do both? Can he be a defensive stalwart against MacKinnon and his line while Caulfield, Bolduc, and Suzuki wreak havoc in the offensive zone versus the Avalanche? It's possible. But again, who knows? The other thing about the MacKinnon line that's so dangerous is the fact that they will draw penalties because of the speed that they play at. Whether it's him, whether it's Makar, they catch you on the wrong side of the puck all the time. So the Canadiens' penalty kill specifically has to be extremely strong against the Avalanche to get any type of chance to win. And you could say what you will about the Canadiens' power play. Yeah, today it went 0 for 1, and it was split between a couple of periods, right? First to second. And that's never an easy power play to execute on, so I get that. But when you take a look at the Colorado Avalanche and their ability to score on the power play, it's crazy. So the Canadiens need to make sure that they play a clean hockey game like they did today and just continue that versus the Avalanche. Because if they start taking penalties, they start getting the hooks out, they start grabbing onto players from the Avalanche, they're going to be in massive trouble. One thing that the Canadiens could take advantage of on the Avalanche is their lack of defensive depth, right? Once you get past Makar, and who's the other defenseman? Hang on a second. Who was the other guy? Let me look at the graphic. Oops, not there. Taves, excuse me. There you go. That's the guy I was looking for. Once you get past Makar and Taves, there's not much there defensively for the Avalanche. And that's where the Canadiens can take advantage. Get in hard on the forecheck. Create offensive zone opportunities. Don't rim the puck in hard and allow the goaltender to play it. Instead, put the pucks in softly if you can't carry them into the zone. Get in hard on the forecheck. Come in support and get possession of that puck. If you do that against the Colorado defense, a defense, by the way, that was taxed heavily in today's game versus Minnesota, because Minnesota did exactly what I'm talking about to them, then what you're going to have is you're going to have a tired group out there once that first period gets by. That's the part that Montreal also has to avoid. That first period onslaught that Colorado is going to bring on. Colorado expended a lot of energy versus Minnesota today. So you're going to see them kind of lose that energy as the game progresses. There's going to be a couple of players on the ice like Nathan MacKinnon, like Cale Makar, that are going to be able to keep that energy up because they're just absolute monsters when it comes to their physical conditioning. But the others, you may not very well see their best. You may see it early, but you won't see it late. And the Canadiens can take advantage of it. If they weather that storm in the first period that we know Colorado is going to bring, then the Canadiens can actually come out on the right side of that game versus Colorado. A game that everybody has so far written them off in. Let's call it what it is. Of course, you're going to need Jakub Dobeš to be good in goal and play with a lot of confidence. He's going to get peppered. Now, the last time he faced the Avalanche, he played extremely well last season. We'll see whether or not that translates this year because he is coming off a win. He has struggled recently. We'll see how that plays out. But Jakub Dobeš has to play his best hockey versus the Avalanche for the Canadiens to win, just like Montembeault had to do that today versus Vegas. It goes without saying. So he has to be sharp early as well. That first period, which is normally the period that Dobeš has the most trouble with, is going to be extremely important for him. If he comes out of that period relatively unscathed, then the Canadiens are going to be in fantastic shape. But it's going to be another one of those games where he's going to have to read the play. He's going to have to freeze the puck as often as he can because the Canadiens as well are coming off a back-to-back, although they didn't look quite as tired as you might think at the end of the third period. So we'll see how that plays out tomorrow. And finally, the last thing, as always, the most important thing is going to be the battle for the neutral zone. If there's an area that the Avalanche dominate game in, game out, it's the middle of the ice. If there's an area that Montreal controls game in, game out among the best teams in the National Hockey League, it's the middle of the ice. So that battle is going to be where the game is won and lost. If the Canadiens can mitigate the amount of speed that the Avalanche can generate through the neutral zone and maintain a tight gap as they cluster up and down the ice, the Avalanche are going to have a hard time attacking with any speed. The less speed that they have, the more energy that they're going to expend, the more energy they expend, the more likely they are to slow down later on in the hockey game. And that's going to work to the Canadiens' advantage. So your keys to victory, once more, shut down the McKinnon and Makar pairing. Make sure you attack Colorado's defensive depth. Dominate on special teams. Play very well, especially on the penalty kill, and don't get on the wrong side of the puck. Your goaltending has to be uber sharp against guys like McKinnon, Lehkonen, Necas, Landeskog, Nelson. And last but not least, you need to make sure you win the neutral zone battle. That's where this game is going to be won and lost. Period. Do you believe that the Montreal Canadiens can win tomorrow's hockey game? Do you believe that the Montreal Canadiens have enough energy left in the tank to take on the Colorado Avalanche? The Avalanche are going to be pissed. They played a good game versus the Wild. The Wild were just better, right? They outshot them. They outplayed them. It wasn't as if the Wild didn't put it their 2 cents to get that win in a shootout. But it went to a shootout, not in regulation. The Avalanche and the Wild, the minute the Wild took the lead, the Avalanche came right back and tied the game. So what's there to say? Not much. The Avalanche are by far the best team in the National Hockey League right now. Question is, how long is it going to stay that way? Maybe a while because they're playing so well and they're relatively healthy, unlike most of the other teams in the NHL right now. So long as that's the case, I don't see the Avalanche losing a lot of games. Can the Canadiens pull off a win? Maybe. I'm not going to say yes. What I am going to say is if the floodgates open early and Dobeš can't stop the damage early on in the hockey game, that's where the game's going to be won and lost. Never mind the second and third period. The first period is going to be the key for the Montreal Canadiens. If they come out of the first period down by one or even up by some miracle, just like they did today, then they're going to be in a good spot and the possibility of them winning the game goes up another percentage point. If they come out of the second period in that same shape or even with a 2-goal lead, that's going to be even better. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The Avalanche are an extremely quick and dangerous team. They could very possibly do exactly what they did versus the Wild. Habs score, Avalanche score. The key is that the Canadiens have to pay attention after they score goals. It can't be score and bring out the third or fourth line. You have to bring out a line that's going to match the intensity of the next line coming up. So if The Canadiens score and the second line's coming on for the Avalanche. The Canadiens have to have that second line on. You know that their coach, who I can't remember who it is now, I think it's still Jerry Bednar. But anyway, their coach is going to try to take advantage of that matchup and the fact that he's got last change. That's how Colorado is so dominant at home. The fact that they have last change and he could throw out the McKinnon line whenever he feels like it, and the other team doesn't have enough time to respond before something happens. So the Canadiens need to play tight as far as the gap is concerned, keep good active sticks, and keep McKinnon on the perimeter. If they can do that and they get good goaltending from Dobish, they'll be in a good spot. But we'll see what happens. Again, I'll remind you, tomorrow's game is at 3 in the afternoon. So it's an early game. No excuses. You got to watch. I don't care what you have planned. I'm kidding. Try to watch the game as much as you can. I know Saturday afternoons aren't the greatest time for games to be played when it comes to hockey, but hey, it is what it is. It's American Thanksgiving. The weekend timings are always messed up. So watch the game and let's see what happens. Keep your fingers crossed and hope for Canadiens' victory. But one way or the other, even if they lose versus the Colorado Avalanche, you got to give the Canadiens props for coming away with 4 points out of a possible 6 if they drop the game tomorrow. Nobody expected them to get 4 points. People were talking them barely getting 2. They've got 4 in the bank with 2 still on the line. So good on them. Good on the Canadian coaching staff for preparing them properly. And good on you for believing in your hockey team. And of course, great on Sam Montembeault. Got to give him love today. He was outstanding. Speaking of love, let's give it to instacustoms.com and cheapesteachers.ca for supporting our podcast. And we'll see you post-game after the Canadiens take on the Avalanche.